The Popstorian Podcast with Chris and Ben.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet.
A date which will live in infamy.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
What are you supposed to do when you see the Flash? Duck and cover.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Great power comes great responsibility.
Hello, it's me, Ben.
Ben, this is Chris, of course.
Hello,
And,
Chris. How did you get this number?
We scheduled this, Ben. Don't you remember?
Oh, yes.
You have a more controversial question for you, Ben.
Yes.
Are you
Pop
ready?
story and minisode controversy.
Yes.
Should I put on my seatbelt?
You might want to.
Okay.
So, in the last few months, there have been a lot of discussion about the technology AI.
Oh boy.
I know a few months ago there was some strikes, right?
Yes.
That kind of involved that. There's been some lawsuits as well
Mhm.
in the news.
Mhm.
So you're vaguely familiar with the technology.
Yes, and some of the debates surrounding it I've heard about.
So my question is then, do you think there ever will be a happy medium where AI will be incorporated into the film industry and it not be controversial?
Hmm. Well, I think the important part of the conversation that people miss a lot of the time is that AI has existed for a long time. Once we start to accept a technology, we don't call it AI anymore.
Yeah.
So there's something, I believe it's called OCN, which is character recognition software. So basically it allows computers to read documents. It's what enables you to copy and paste from PDFs or convert PDFs to Word documents, editable documents. That technology was originally considered artificial intelligence of a sort, because it was, giving the computer the ability to recognize text was considered an aspect of intelligence.
Right.
But nowadays, that's usually not what people refer to when they say AI. That's not what they mean. It's not really considered artificial intelligence anymore because the potential of AI has moved beyond that. The frontier has shifted. So yeah, I do think there will come a time. What needs to happen in order to get us to that happy medium is hard to say. You think about colonizing the Old West, to tie it into a familiar Popstorian theme, the Western and the conquest of the West. In the beginning, it was kind of a lawless place. And then, the railroads came in and the society became more gentrified and colonization kind of took hold. And, the East Coast white civilization prevailed upon the land and it grew that way. I think we're still in kind of like the early days of the Wild West of AI, where there's been very little legislation, although there are some copyright guidelines with AI now, as far as what you can and can't use and what is fair use and what isn't. So we're in the point where there's a lot of good AI uses, but there's also a lot of bad, unethical uses of AI. And at some point, I do think that, much like the internet, the internet was a wild, unregulated place. And, gradually regulations and orders and structures and government regulations have come down and started to make sense of it. It's still pretty wild though. The internet is still pretty rough and ready place.
It can be. Nowhere, like I remember when it first rolled out as a teenager, it was a wild place, considering what it is now.
Yes.
And social media too. Like social
Yes.
media first rolled out. Oh my goodness! Like you could drop anything you want.
Yes,
But
it's true.
YouTube, there was no restriction on YouTube.
No. And over time there came more regulation and there came more etiquette, like social etiquette, as to what's the proper use of this. And I think that will play a role in AI, where people develop agreed upon uses, whereas right now it's very fractured. People have very widely varying opinions on AI and what's the right use of it.
Yeah.
Some people think it should just be banned entirely. Some people are very much in favor of advancing the technology as far as it can go. So
Yeah.
there could be a Butlerian jihad, to borrow a phrase from Dune, something we talked about in the last episode, where everybody destroys their thinking machines and computers are banned. I could see that happening. I could see an embrace and a regulation of AI, where governments set boundaries and limits on how far the technology can be developed. And I also wouldn't be surprised if AI was developed and people discover that there are natural limitations. Right now it's like, oh, are we going to be living in Blade Runner, where we have intelligent androids who are sentient in the same way that Data is sentient on Star Trek? Nobody really knows for sure if that's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't happen, if there turns out to be something greater to man, but you never know. I mean, you never know. So
I know that the development has hit a roadblock recently. I know Google, they had a big to do about their image generator producing historical images, but not very historical.
Right.
Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear the full story, but I saw some headlines.
Yeah. And the one article that I did read, I don't think really went deeply into the actual event. But apparently there was some images, including images of Nazi soldiers being depicted as different ethnicities, which offended some. And so
it wouldn't be accurate, would
it's
it?
because of the way the program worked. Yeah, there's a limitation to, I guess, how much you program. It's a computer system. So it's the same thing as anything else.
How far did those limitations go? How far will that boundary get pushed? Only time will tell. But I have faith in human beings to make good choices for all of our technological mistakes and missteps, all the misuses of technology. There's also been a lot of balanced use of technology and a lot of good that's come from technology. So I don't think the right answer is to stick our heads in the sand. It's probably better to investigate fully and see where the path leads in a controlled environment as possible. But I am prepared to be wrong if that it turns out to
in
be
that event.
than how I predict it. Nobody can know for sure. It's a bit like the discovery of the atom, the splitting of the atom as well. There's a great deal of uncertainty.
Yeah.
It's like if we set off this bomb, could the atmosphere ignite?
Exactly. Yeah.
Question that
one day there'll be a movie made of the development of AI.
Yeah.
It'll be like the network of Facebook.
Yeah, the social network. Yeah.
Social network.
Well, that's a good follow-up question though, Chris. Who is the Oppenheimer of AI? Is there one person who's kind of the
I don't know, man.
poster child? I haven't seen anybody.
No one has stepped up and be like, I invented AI.
Yeah.
I don't know if they want to admit that quite yet.
It might be it's just too complicated of a technology to have any one inventor.
Yeah, it would be like someone stepping up and saying, I invented the internet, which of course somebody did say that at one time.
True. Yeah, there's
Yeah, so
a few people.
that I think that story is still to be written, in as far as the
Yeah.
historical record of technology.
hmm How long do you think
That
it'll
was-
take until we form a narrative? Like 20 years is a date we've talked about in the past,
Yeah,
processing a
so-
historical event, but this is kind of more spread out than that. It's not like one AI event has happened yet.
So yeah, I think another 10 years we might see a little bit more research and more scholarship on that subject. Because I think that's what it took for the internet. The internet comes in the early 90s, and we're just now, which I guess that's 30 years ago now. But we're just now seeing a lot more scholarship on the development of the internet and like what people thought of it before it became widespread. I think you'll see social media become. I think we're seeing some scholarship on social media as well,
Mm.
like its development, and of course, pop culture with the Social Network movie coming out a few
Yeah.
years ago. So, and of course, I have a few books about social media and Twitter that I'm
Mhm.
interested in reading. So I think another 10 years, we're going to see probably more scholarship on that subject as far as the historical side of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's scary, but it's also exciting. So I think it's good to keep a balanced perspective on it. Thank you for asking. That's a good question. We also could have a much longer. We could probably do a whole podcast series on the history of artificial intelligence in fiction, even going right back
Yeah.
to like Frankenstein in a way.
Oh my goodness. I mean,
there's-
yeah, I guess you could see that in a way.
If you wanted to
We
think
should
about
totally
it
talk
that way.
totally talk about Metropolis.
Yes, huge.
That would be
It's-
huge.
There's a play. It's called RUR. I don't remember what the RUR stands for, but that's where the term robot comes from. One of those R's is a robot. It's a Czech play.
Yeah.
That's where the word robot originates from, which is not that far before Metropolis, if I remember rightly. So
That's interesting.
it's an interesting phenomenon. Artificial intelligence in fiction and in reality, computers and how smart they are or are not.
Yeah.
And talk about that in the light of Desk Set, a favorite movie of ours.
That's a great movie. I love
Spencer
that
Tracy
movie.
and Katharine Hepburn movie about a secretary who cannot be replaced by a computer. Well, thanks for listening to the Popstorian podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And
Check
we're
us out
also-
on the socials.
yes, we're on the socials.
That-
We're
what was
on
that?
the YouTube, so you can see our faces as well as hear our voices. What do you think of that? Be sure to subscribe to us there and leave us a comment, send us a message. How can people reach us by email, Chris?
Popstorian@gmail.com.
Yes, I get the emails, so if you have a note to send us, send it that way, and we will receive it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.